episode, the transmission was stuck in first gear. Now we're at Al's shop to figure out what the problem is, and we're also going to get a peek at how a manual transmission actually works.
So this is called the shift forks. There's this one here shifts first and second, this one does third and fourth, this one does fifth and part of reverse. Long story short, we never use fifth anyway, so that's why it's perfect. But when we race, we use second, third, and fourth constantly, and 2 and 3 being the two majors. Well, here's the first and second gear fork. Well, it's snapped off, and there's a third little piece there, a second piece that goes there. So you jam all these pieces into this tiny little slot right here. All that stuff fits in there, you know. Here's the piece, it fits right in there like that. This little piece would fit in right there like that, and then the other piece there. And yeah, that slides all in there. Well, eventually one of these pieces broke off, probably the edge first, or it could be the inside, it just depends. And then you could actually see it's worn down here, it's shiny. That means that that's been grinding back and forth for a while. And here there's less, so I'm just gonna go with probably this cracked first, and then eventually, because this is cracked, it's forcing this up and down, eventually that just broke right off. Same thing with now, we've got an issue where this isn't going into gear properly. This piece is probably jamming up somewhere, falling through the tranny. So now it's probably not helping third gear, which is this piece here. This piece broke off of third gear. Same thing basically happened. If you put too much force on these pieces, they just crack right off. And they are aluminum, so they're strong yet brittle and light. But steel would be best, but they don't make a steel part for this for these transmissions.
Maybe this initial piece broke, it was jamming shit,
yeah,
and then it had a bigger failure.
Yeah, and trying to drive through it, you end up, what's going on? You might end up pushing a little harder.
I missed third coming out of 8,
yeah,
like 4 times.
Yeah, so that's, here's one. Piece right there.
Yeah.
That piece goes right there.
So that's what was, maybe this jammed into here and then caused that to break.
What happens is, if this fork, like when that breaks off, the selector goes in, okay, that piece right here makes this piece go up and down like this, the selector. Well, if you only have one side, it's supposed to have 2 pieces moving it up and down at the same time, parallel. Yeah, like this. Well, imagine trying to do it from, like, you could already see it. If I'm doing it from one side, I can't get it in there.
And that's why it won't shift. So one side was broken off.
That's right. So it was forcing it to go in and out. And if you were able to get it in, well, it was a fluke. It was like you had the perfect everything, and it just went in.
Yeah.
And you were lucky that you got it to go in.
Because the shifting, basically, you could almost shift where it's almost no effort if you get it just right.
Yeah.
But if you don't get it right, so that means most of the time I shift really well.
Hopefully. We'll find out.
We'll find out how these forks last.
Yeah, exactly. Basically, in a nutshell, because it's really kind of complicated, this here, let's start with this piece. Your clutch disc is right here, and then your motor is turning here. So as soon as you let go the clutch, motor goes, starts this shaft, turns this shaft once you've selected a certain gear, and then makes your wheels turn via this differential, and then your axle is here and here. So that's in a nutshell.
Yeah, the wheels are like...
The wheels are here and out there.
Yeah. Final drive is basically how many times your wheels turn for every time this guy turns.
Correct.
So the bigger the number, the more the engine will turn for a given speed. So basically...
More acceleration.
Yeah, like if you have like a 4.2, you might never get into fourth, or barely get into 4th gear. And if you have a 4.9, you're going to be redlining 4th gear.
Correct.
Right before you hit the brakes.
Yeah.
So it's going to be like brakes. So you're using everything that the motor has to offer. You're not wasting any power on the wrong gears.
Other than we're not using 5th gear, which normally in most racing application you want to use the final 5th gear, but I mean that means we have to that means we have to change another final drive that doesn't exist. So we just use the 4.9.
And 5th is a weird shift. It's way out there. 4th, 3rd and 4th is like up down. It's super nice.
Yeah.
5th is like
5th
and 1st are kind of gears you don't want to use while racing.
Yeah.
And then, like, one thing I noticed from ice racing is having the right gears makes a big difference. Like in ice racing, in my car, I can stay in third gear all the time. Everybody else is shifting. I'm just in third gear. So it's like, I don't ever miss a shift because I don't have to shift.
Third gear in your car is like 150 kilometers an hour at the top, at the end of it.
Never get into fourth.
Never,
Never.
But here, we're going into fourth, going to 160 kilometers an hour at 7,000 RPM versus 155 in third gear at 7,500 RPM. Like, that's significant.
Yeah, I'm probably hitting fourth gear. Well, the tack wasn't working, so it's hard to say, but just probably 55, 6,000 RPM.
Yeah.
So if with a different final drive, you're gaining like 1,500 RPM or 1,000 RPM.
That's the end of your straight.
Yeah. Which is where these motors make their power.
Yep. In here you've got a selector, and you've got a synchro, that brass colored piece, and then you've got your gear right there. This is second gear. And when the selector fork that's broken over there goes on each side of this and pulls up, basically you end up selecting second gear, and it locks this gear to this gear. Now you can see it doesn't spin. Now it's locked to that shaft. When you pull it back into neutral, that gear spins again, and now it's neutral. And same with first gear. If I select down, that's first gear. Now it's locked. Big picture, these are always living together and rotating. And when you select a certain gear, it locks the two shafts together and makes the wheels, makes the car go forward. That might be tough, but yeah, there's first gear. If you could make that move all the way up and down, it would select the gear. It's better when it's mounted,
all these gears are constantly turning.
Yep.
But turning not connected to the shaft. But when you select a gear, now this gear is locked. These ones can spin, but this one's locked, which means in this case, this is what? Third?
This is third gear, yeah.
So now third gear, because it's the one that's locked, is the one that's turning the wheels.
On this piece right here.
Yeah. And then if you shift to fourth, now third gear's loose, but fourth gear is locked.
Oh, fourth, you need to go a little higher. There you go.
Fourth gear's locked, which means that fourth gear is the gear that's turning. So all the gears are like meshed together, all turning together.
Until you select the gear you want.
And the selector locks that gear to the shaft.
Yep.
And then first and second get locked to the shaft, this shaft, and 3, 4, and 5 get locked to this shaft. And then that's basically how it works. Next episode, the Toyo Tires lucky number 13 is back on track with a fixed transmission and hopefully some reliability.